In this lesson, we'll create and customize a cost estimation schedule for the steel in our design concept. So let's get to work. All right, so here's our concept in place here. And you can tell from what we have on the screen, we're going to have a steel superstructure. You can also see we've got some exterior cladding, a roof system, a metal roof system, along with some panels. And what we're going to do in this lesson, as well as throughout this course, is we're going to learn to use schedules to create a schedule displaying the costs associated with our materials. And we're actually going to begin with our steel in this lesson. So there's a couple of ways you can start. We'll actually start with the columns here. So I'm going to jump to my view here, under my view tab, and under the schedules, you'll see we have a number of options. Now, one of the easiest schedules to create is a graphic column schedule. And I'm going to show you the neat thing about working with this. So I'm simply going to click on graphic column schedule. And when I do, like magic, we automatically have this schedule set up. And that's because of the parametric relationship or nature that Revit works in. I'm creating a model in one view, but I'm also creating a drawing, plans, and even schedules. And Revit knows how to take that information from the model and dump it into schedules. So what we have here is a graphic representation of what we have in our model. And we'll actually start from the bottom here. You'll see column locations. Since we took the time to be organized and set up our column grids and do everything right, Revit automatically lets us know that at A1 we have a column composed of it's a 10 by 49, and it's this height. It even shows the levels associated. So it's very, very helpful. And you'll notice a couple of things when we're in here. These larger pieces of steel, you can't really tell the height on those because they're not attached to a level, but that's not a problem at all. I can actually go into a view, add a level, and will automatically update this graphic schedule. So I'll show you how it's done. So let's jump to this elevation view, and I'm just going to explode this view here. And we know that we want to get the height of all the steel associated with our design. So what we can do is go to these areas here. So this one, we'll create a level here. We'll create a level at 3, and we'll also create a level at 4. And it'll be updated in our graphic schedule. So I'm going to go to Architecture tab, and let's add some levels really quick. We'll start here. We'll go with this level here at grid bubble 2. I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of my grid lines here. Add a level for grid line 3. Perfect. Actually, we'll do this for 4 because 4 is a little bit lower. So we'll go to grid line 4 here. That'll be level 5. And then we'll go to this level here. And I can adjust the names on these here, so we'll really quickly make some adjustments here. So I'll change this one to, I know that one needs to be 4. I'll put 4.0 because I can't have two of the levels the same. So I'm going to click on this one. We'll call this one 5. That one's 6 on top. Perfect. And we'll go back to this one and get rid of this 0. All right. Now that I have them numbered in sequence, I'll show you exactly how this updates in our graphical view here. So I'm going to go back to my properties browser. And you should see my graphic column schedule here. And I'm going to click on that, and we can click on the graphic column schedule. And you can see those levels are all automatically updated here. So we have those level 4, 5, and 6 that we added are there exactly. And now we know the exact height of each piece of steel. So, for instance, this one at A2, it goes all the way up to what we consider level 5. And the height on it is 33 feet, 11 and 5/16 inch. And you could take the same approach to figure out what's going on with the rest of them. So this helps if maybe you're working with something, maybe a steel manufacturer. You could probably give them this list if you want to kind of get the ball rolling on, get some pricing going for steel. So there's another way we can actually create a schedule for our column, and that's with going with a structural column schedule. So to do that, I'm going to go to my view again, view tab, and under the schedules, we're going to go with schedule quantities. And this time we're going to go with structural columns, and this will actually put it into a more of a numbers format as opposed to something graphical like we just created. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for structural columns. Had I just chosen columns here, it would have went with the architectural element. So if I'd maybe had something that's more for decoration or for looks, maybe some wood columns in a porch or something that doesn't provide much structural support, That's what would appear in just the regular columns schedule. But if you wanted to get our structural elements and all our steel, we got to make sure we specify structural columns schedule, which is what we did here. And for the phase of construction, this is a new project, so we'll be in new construction. And I'm going to click OK. And now I can begin adding some fields here. So what we want to know is a few things when working with steel. We know that, or I'm going to make the assumption that when pricing steel, it's going to go by per linear foot. So I need to know, one, definitely the cost. I also need to know the cut length, or the length associated with my steel here. So I'm going to go with length. And then I also want to know the family and type, just in case. I need to be reminded of that. But you also want to know what kind of steel you need to buy. So we'll add that to our list of fields as well. And finally, one of the favorite features I really like working with when working with schedules is this calculated value. This allows me to actually create a formula that I can use to generate the cost associated with whatever element I'm working on. So in this case, I'm going to name this one. This will be cost of my columns. So we'll go cost of columns. And what we're going to do here in the very bottom, we're going to use this rectangle here, and we're going to pull the elements that are located in our schedule field, and we're going to use those as parts of our formula. So we know that, or we're going to make the assumption that when pricing steel, it's going to go per linear foot. So I'll go per linear foot formula will be length. And we're going to use the star here for times the cost, which we'll specify here in just a moment. And you got to make sure this is very cap sensitive. So how these elements appear in your schedule field, they need to appear here. Otherwise, Revit won't recognize those elements. So make sure you capitalize that C for cost in our formula. And then I'm going to divide that by 1 foot. So that makes this unit of measurement per linear foot. So 1 foot. So once I have that in place, I'll click OK. Revit likes that formula, and I'll click OK again here, and it's going to generate a schedule for us. So you see how everything is laid out in the schedule. Another really handy thing about working with these schedules, you can customize these. I can adjust the color, I can adjust the order in which these elements appear. So let's do that really quick. That'll really make this graph really easy to read here. So we'll go to Fields, and now all I'm going to do here in my scheduled fields is I'm going to change the order. So I want to know what type first. So I'm going to select type, and I'm going to move that to the top of my list. I want to know the length, so I'm going to move that up. Ooh, you can move it down right there. I want to know the cost, and then we know the cost of the columns here. So that I like this order. This is logical order for how things should appear on my schedule here. So I'm going to click OK. And now the only thing I need to do is input my cost. So, and this is something you may get from the manufacturer or wherever you're purchasing your steel from. So we know that we have our wide flanges, and I'm going to widen my sail here so I know exactly what type of wide flange we're working with. Perfect. So now we know it's a wide flange, W10 by 49. We know the length. So I'm going to make the assumption that for our columns, they are probably going to be about 45 feet per linear foot. And this is just a rough estimate, just to show you how this can be done. This is not a solid number or anything. So once I type that in there, I'll hit enter. And Revit will leave me a message here, and it's going to say, this change will be applied to all the elements of the types 10 by 49, which is exactly what I want. I don't want to have to retype this number in all these fields, so I'm going to click OK. And what it did there, it gave me a unit cost, or the per linear foot cost, and then it gave me the cost of the actual piece of steel right here and to the right. So now's a good time to go in and format how these new numbers are going to be displayed. So what I'll do next is we'll go back to our properties window, and I'm going to jump here into formatting. And when I do that, I can jump around here to a number of these tabs and make adjustments I need here. So what I want to do, the first thing I want to format is I want to format how my cost of my columns is being displayed. I don't want all these running decimals afterwards. And I also want to display the type of currency we're working with here. So I'm going to go to my cost of columns row here, and I'm going to go to field format, and we're going to get rid of this default. That'll allow us to make changes. Since we know we're working with money and currency, we'll go with the currency format. We'll go with 2 decimal places, and a unit symbol will be a $sign. And now I can press OK, and you can see that change is updated. So now that we have all this in place for our columns, let's create a grand total line down here on the bottom. We know what everything costs individually. We know what each piece is. We know the dimensions associated. I need a grand total. So to do that, we're simply going to go back to our properties browser again, and this time we're going to go to sort and grouping, and we're going to go to edit. And when you're in there, you can see at the very bottom here, there's a grand totals box. Simply just check that. I'm going to keep my title, count, and totals, but if you wanted to adjust those parameters, you can, but I'm going to keep that how it is. And I'm definitely going to itemize every instance because I want to know what I have, how many I have. I want to know all those details. So I'm going to click OK. And what it did is it created a nice grand total schedule here on the bottom. But I'm not done yet. It just created a grand total for my family types, but I want a grand total for the cost. So now I'm going to go back to my fields, and we're going to format those fields again. So we'll go back to cost here, cost of the columns, and on the very bottom I'm going to click calculate totals, and that'll allow Revit to calculate that total running down that entire column there. So I'll click OK. And we've now created a total. So what we just created told me I have 16 pieces of steel. These are all the elements associated with that. And this is the total estimated cost of purchasing the steel, which is $21,899.56. All right. So, and in the next lesson, we'll jump into how to price the steel truss that's holding up the roof system.